charm, Ray. The one constant through all the years, Ray, has been baseball.
Little roller up along first. Behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win. Now the 2-1.
Line drive to the base. Just as the score the tying run. Green to the plate. And he is safe. Safe at the plate. The Braves go to the World Series.
Have reserved seats somewhere along one of the baselines that sat when they were children and cheered their heroes.
Gibson swings and a fly ball to deep right field. This is going to be a home run. Unbelievable!
A 3-run home run for Bucky Dent. The Yankees now lead by a score of 3-2.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mazeroski has hit a 1-0 pitch over the left field fence at Ford Field to win the 1960 World Series.
They'll arrive at your door as innocent as children, longing for the past.
The Pope arrived at Yankee Stadium. As one enthusiastic announcer put it, he is standing on second base.
Reggie Jackson. Long drive right field. It is goodbye. Big World Series for Green. The Blue Jays are World Series champions as Joe Carter hits a 3-run home run.
Back and throws. There's a left back. It's going to be, I believe, the Giants from the pennant. The Giants from the pennant. The Giants from the pennant.
The 0-1 pitch. A liner off Nagy's glove into center field. The Florida Marlins have won the World Series.
The memories will be so thick, you'll have to brush them away from the faces.
The 1-0 delivery to Fisk. He swings, long drive, left field. If it stays fair, it's gone. Home run. The Red Sox win. And the series is...
Lolich fires. Ball is hit high in the air. This should be the series. Freehand waving everybody away in foul territory. Detroit wins.
Here's the pitch to Willie. There's a liner straight to Richardson. The ball game is over and the World Series is over. Willie McCovey hit it like a bullet. A line drive right
Baseball to mark the time.
The Oakland A's take. I'll tell you what, we're having an earth.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Candlestick Park for Game 3 of the 1989 World Series.
It's been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again.
Frank Robinson, the right-hand batter.
Long drive to left field. Leva. Yes, it's it back.
Base hit loaded, 1 out. Pena in a jam. The Twins are going to win the World Series. The Twins have won it.
Ozzie with 1 out. Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. It's a home run. And the
Willie Mays just brought this crowd to its feet with a catch, which must have been an optical illusion to a lot of people.
This field, this game, is a part of our past, Ray. It reminds us of all that once was good, and it could be again.
Broadcasted live.
Hey! Who wants to have some fun?
There are balls coming from all over the place. Left field, center field, right field. See, this is the kind of thing, quite honestly, right now, that makes you want to see the Chicago Cubs team lose.
Now, you just saying you want to have fun, or do you really want to have fun?
It'll be fun.
Will the next person that sees anybody throw anything onto this field, point them out, and get them out of here? You don't live in Cleveland. You live in Cincinnati.
You talking to me? You talking to me?
That is the farthest thing in the universe from the truth.
Hello, everyone, live. It's the Dan Scott Show. And right there is your host, Dan Scott.
Or perhaps a reasonable facsimile thereof.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the program. I am Dan Scott. Good to have you with us. Hope that your day is off to a good start. A little overcast right now, but we are headed towards temperatures in the mid to upper 80 or upper 70s today, And boy, it's going to be a welcome change from what we have lived through here and what those of us who've been traveling with Furman baseball have lived through this past weekend out in Wichita, Kansas. But anyway, good to be with you. Hope that your day's off to a great start. You know our goal here. If it is, don't do anything to screw it up. If not, maybe we'll do something that'll provide you with a little bit of a lift. And at the end of the day, our main goal, really the only focus, is that I shouldn't say the only focus, but the main focus, that we learn something we did not know. And again, that's easier for some of us than it is for others. It's been a week between shows, and that was not planned. I knew that it was going to be a little difficult in Wichita, so I kind of had figured that after last Wednesday that would take care of last week. Did not think it would be Wednesday this week, and I knew Monday would be kind of up in the air depending on how late we got home. I got home about 2:30 in the morning, so I decided to pack it in. And then I came off of that trip and inherited a cold from someone. But I will say this, in the grand scheme of things, I'm extremely blessed because there were at least two players on the team that had a vicious stomach bug and did not play all weekend. John Michael Bertrand out of the bullpen and starting DH Jason Costa, both were incapacitated pretty much the entire weekend with a nasty stomach bug. So to come out of there with just a cold, in most senses, well, in every sense, I was very blessed. The way that it affects me, though, and those of you who have been with me as listeners of my show and listeners of baseball for a long time, know that when I get a cold or I get a illness of just about any kind, ultimately it settles in one place, and you can hear it. It settles right here in my throat. And for most people, that wouldn't be an issue. But when you are someone who makes your living with your voice, it becomes a bit more of a problem. And as I have said many times in the past, even though this is mostly a web video-based program now, I still have the radio mentality. Mime radio simply does not work. You know, you could do all these little hand gestures that I'm doing now that, and I hate mimes, by the way, but it doesn't work on the radio. You got to be able to speak. You've got to be able to talk, like last night on the baseball broadcast, which was very difficult. So as is normally the case when this happens, I go through this period where it's very difficult to speak. The broadcast last night, although people have been kind and telling me that I did a good job and got through it okay, I thought it was particularly brutal in spots. And here's why. But besides the fact that it just didn't sound good because my voice wasn't good. And I'll put a disclaimer on this right from the very beginning. I don't claim to be a great broadcaster anyway. I quit worrying about that stuff a long time ago. I checked my ego at the door a number of years ago when I realized that it was getting the best of me. And I just decided to have fun and do, the best I can do. This is who I am. This is how I go about my business. And let's go out and have fun and see what happens. And to that end, I think while as a broadcaster, like in any job, you prepare, you do your due diligence before the game, team stats, player stats, little stories, the things that make a broadcast interesting, or at least you hope it makes a broadcast interesting. The one thing you have to be able to pull it off, I think two things. One is obviously a voice that works, but the other thing is the ability to perform in many senses like an athlete does. And what I mean by that is to play without thinking, to read and react. In other words, not have to think about the words that are going to come and formulate them before you speak them. that they just automatically come based on what is seeing. And if you've done your homework, you've done your knowledge, your knowledge assessment, you've done your due diligence, you know the people who are performing, you know their attributes, you know all of those things, then automatically things are going to come to your mind. They're going to come instantaneously, and it's all going to be a free flow. Now, when Tom and I are working together, sometimes that free flow is like two trains heading in the same direction on the same track, and we can get off track from time to time, but that's part of what makes it fun. But what I find is when I have the voice issue, I don't know what it's going to sound like from break to break. If I get it going reasonably well during a half inning and then we have to go to break, I don't know what it's going to sound like when we're coming back. And I know I don't make things better by constantly going, doing those things during the break as well. And I just did that, and I can already feel my throat hurting even further. So I find myself, and this, I guess this is just me, but I find myself worried about what it sounds like, which gets me to thinking about what I'm going to say to try to do it in fewer words so the voice will last longer, if that makes any sense. And I didn't feel like the broadcast went well at all last night. For those of you who lied and told me that it did, God bless you. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate your loyalty. I just didn't feel like there was any real flow to it, and I apologize and hope and pray that it's better by Thursday. The other thing that goes along with this is normally what has to happen for me to get over this and get this out of my system to where the voice is sustainable again is to go on a steroid treatment, a 7-day steroid treatment, which I started last night and then again this morning. So the voice is already, while it's still scratchy and still not near 100%, it's a lot more stable than it was during the game last night. And that's the effect of another night's rest and the 2 steroid treatments I've already taken in the 6-day package or 7-day package. But I always remind people this, that while it may improve the quality of my voice, the steroids definitely will not enhance my performance. Okay, you can only do so much with what you got. And Tom and I were joking about it on the air last night that, during the controversial steroid era of Major League Baseball, for a lot of people who don't understand why the steroids were used, they just think, well, the guy's a 220 hitter and he's going to take steroids and suddenly he's going to be an all-star. That's not the way it works. That's not what it was intended for. It was intended for a couple of things. Number one, it was intended for quicker recovery from injury. Number two, obviously it was intended to increase strength. And three, like in Barry Bonds' case, defy the aging process. I mean, Barry Bonds at ages 36 through 40, his bat speed increased or at least stayed the same, and that just defies genetics. That just defies the law of physics when it comes to the human body. And so that's what steroids are used for, to enhance a performance, to make you stronger, yes, so when you hit a ball, the ball goes further, to help you recover more quickly from injuries, and to do those other little things. But if you can't hit, steroids were not going to turn you into a hitter. If you can't make consistent contact, they weren't going to help you suddenly be able to put bat on ball. So there's enhancing performance, but there's also a reality of the situation. And I think that's where I'm in. I'm in the reality of the situation. This ain't going to enhance my performance at all. It's just going to make the voice get better. So take that for what it's worth. And we will move forward in the program today. I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about the trip to Wichita State. Obviously want to spend some time talking about where Furman baseball is after the loss to Clemson last night at Fluor Field by the 10-5 score. Looking ahead to what's coming up beginning tomorrow with the opening of Southern Conference play, and kind of diagnosing where this team is right now, 25 games in to this season. So we've got that to look forward to. Dave Glenn will be with us at 10:25 to talk all things Atlantic Coast Conference and anything else we can drag out of him. Talk a lot of NCAA tournament basketball with the Final Four set and continue on from there. I will tell you right out of the gate before we get to our first break that the show, as always, is brought to you by our friends at the Atlanta Bread Company right down the road in Cherrydale Plaza. They are a tremendous supporter of this show, tremendous supporter of Furman University, and you need to go check them out for yourself if you have not yet. Food is fantastic. People are even better. As it's warming up, there will be some seasonal things added to the menu. They do this every spring. They do it in the fall, do it in the wintertime, things that kind of go with the seasons a little bit. Last year it was a shrimp po' boy in the springtime that was very, very popular. So we'll be telling you about that when that comes about. Bottom line right now is they do such a fantastic job in every aspect of the business, and they've been a tremendous supporter of ours. We are incredibly grateful and ask you to go express your gratitude and tell them when you eat there how happy you are that they're supporting this program. Atlanta Bread Company, Cherrydale Plaza in Greenville. Right down the road from campus, as a matter of fact. All right, we'll go to break. We'll come back, and we'll talk some Furman baseball on the other side. This is the Dan Scott Show. Don't go away. The Atlanta Bread Company wants to make your dining experience as convenient as possible, especially if you're ordering takeout. Go online to atlantabreadcompany.com, place your order there, and pay for it too. Then, when you get to the restaurant at Cherrydale Point, you breeze right by the cash registers and go straight to the pickup counter where your food will be waiting. And speaking of food, try the new shrimp po' boy, a delicious and surprisingly healthy addition to the already great menu. That's the Atlanta Bread Company, Cherrydale Point in Greenville.
Let me tell you something, Cowboy. This rookie can really bring the heat.
He's smoky and spicy with a Chipotle style all his own.
It's a new Montgomery Inn Chipotle barbecue sauce. Make it a part of your home team.
Available now at your neighborhood grocer or online at CincyFavorites.com.
When the Furman baseball team goes on the road, it travels safely, comfortably, and with the latest technology with Jeans Tours and Charters. Jeans has been a Furman favorite for decades and has serviced Furman baseball for over 20 years. Take it from head coach Brett Harker. Book your next road trip with Jeans. Jeans Tours and Charters online at jeansbussvc.com or call 864-242-1673. Jeans Tours and Charters, servicing the upstate since 1980.
If you've been sidelined by an injury, the St. Francis Sports Medicine team is here 24/7 to get you back on the field. Our highly trained network of physicians, athletic trainers, and physical therapists treat all types of sports-related injuries, even those that don't occur from playing a sport. Call the St. Francis Hurt Line at 675-HU-RT for priority appointments or at-home advice. Again, that's 675-HU-RT.
All right, welcome back to the show. I am Dan Scott. Good to have you with us on this Wednesday edition. Coming up in just about 10 minutes or so, Dave Glenn of ACCsports.com will be joining us talking basketball and who knows whatever else we'll get into with David. I want to tell you very quickly about our friends at Security Complete. They are my security provider for my home. They can do your home, your business as well. Local guys who know the industry, over 40 years of experience in the industry, and they have an offer for you now for listeners and viewers of this show. Check this out. Everything you see on the screen here, you get for this one price of $5.99. Now hear me out. You're going to say, Dan, that's a chunk of money. Well, yes and no, because here's why. You get all of this, the keypad, the 3-door sensors, the key fob, pet-friendly motion detector, cellular communicator, yard sign, window sign, all of that. No long-term contracts or agreements. You cancel at any time. And the low monthly rate starting at $29.95, and you have another option for $34.95 if you want it to be more interactive. Here's where you save money. Number one, you own the equipment. and it's not proprietary. By that, I mean if you decide for whatever reason that you do not like their service, you can use this equipment with somebody else's service. You cannot do that with the big companies. Theirs is proprietary. Once you sign with them and you leave them, they lock it out. You can't use that equipment and you're stuck. You own this equipment. The other thing, the company's going to lock you into a servicing contract, sometimes as many as 5 years. Well, do the math. You pay this one-time deal. You pay $29.95 or $34.95, depending. And over the course of 5 years, with security complete, you're going to save between $1,200 and $1,800. So it all depends on how you look at it and how far in advance you're willing to think about it. When you look at it in those terms, that is one heck of a deal. So I would suggest you call them for more information. The number right there on your screen, 864-546-0360. I switched to them. I am 100% satisfied. I would not send you in the wrong direction. I promise you that. Security complete. They are based out of Liberty and serve the entire upstate. Call them today and find out more about that offer for listeners and viewers of the show. All right, so Furman baseball finds itself in the throes of a 5-game losing streak heading into Southern Conference play against Samford on Friday, or on Thursday, tomorrow at Latham Stadium. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. No game on Easter Sunday, which I believe is a very good thing for personal reasons. But despite the fact they've lost 5 in a row, there's a lot to be optimistic about. The schedule to this point, I think, as everybody knows, has been intentionally brutal. Prior to the game against Clemson, which is ranked as high as number 8 in the country last night, the strength of schedule for Furman was number 62 in the nation. And they were a top 100 RPI team at number 94, I believe, going into play yesterday. So it has been a schedule that has been intentionally super difficult to prepare Furman for the conference season. And you know, that strength of schedule and that RPI really doesn't take into account teams like Marist and Central Connecticut State, which won their conferences last year and were NCAA tournament teams. So in the grand view, I think the schedule's even more difficult than the number 62 strength of schedule ranking that's out there now. All of that being said, it's not going to help one iota if it doesn't turn into victories once you get into conference play and start moving on the rest of the season. So the bottom line now is taking what you've learned, taking what you've picked up, both good and bad, over this first 25 games, and being able to make the necessary adjustments. 30 conference games. I'm sorry, not 30, 24 conference games. The Paladins were 14-10 in the league last year, and that starts on Thursday. Things they have to do better, they got to make more contact, striking out way, way too much. Having said that, seeing the kind of arms that we saw at Wichita State, for instance, is not something you're going to see, at least from a depth standpoint, during a 3-game series inside the Southern Conference. You're just not going to see that quality of arm from the Friday night starter all the way through the guys they bring out of the bullpen. So you hope that has prepared you. You've got all of these things that go into preparing you for a conference season, which is going to determine who goes to the NCAA tournament. You know, the chances of the Southern Conference getting an at-large bid to the NCAA regionals is not very good. We know that. So you have to take that into your own hands, like in basketball, win your conference tournament. So all that is preparation for what's about to transpire starting tomorrow. And they have come through this, if you think about it, sitting here a game above 500 now, with the middle portion of the batting order, by and large, struggling, with the pitching staff having been really touched by injuries, the lineup being touched by injuries, but it's also given other guys some opportunities. Logan Taplett would not have been in the starting lineup had Jason Costa been able to throw. Jason Costa can't throw, so he can't catch. He's a DH. Taplett becomes the starting catcher, and this kid's progress behind the plate has been remarkable to watch through 25 games. From a pitching standpoint, injuries, illnesses, other things have given people opportunities they may not have had at other times. And what have we seen? We've seen John Michael Bertrand, the redshirt freshman lefty, turn a corner and step up. We've seen Jordan Beetson, another freshman, really step up, a true freshman who's become a reliable arm out of the bullpen. Now, both of those guys had their moments last night, Bertrand giving up the grand slam and Beetson giving up a 2-run home run late that provided the final margin for Clemson, 10-5. But in and around that, they both still pitched pretty well and continue to get better and better and more confident as they go along. And now all of a sudden, you've got a healthy Heath Hawkins back who pitched last night. You've got Tyler Kimbrell at the end of the game who pitched last night, who, if you did not hear, by the way, thought they were going to lose him for up to a month because he was initially diagnosed with what they thought was mono. Thankfully, they did cultures, and both times those cultures came back negative. He's healthy. He's fine. He's back. And then out in Wichita, a guy who was really, really way under the radar, Austin Wood, kind of started to emerge a little bit. So as you get into conference play now, all of a sudden your bullpen is in pretty good shape and maybe better than pretty good. So it's a matter of your starters doing their jobs, getting you deeper into ball games, and then being able to turn it over to what has suddenly turned into a pretty deep bullpen. I think the pitching aspect of things, despite what you see from the staff ERA right now, I really think that's going to end up being the strength of this team from this point forward as we get into conference play. Got to get the veteran guys in the lineup swinging the bats the way we know they can. Got to get Brandon Elmy going. Got to get Landon Kay going consistently. Got to get more consistency out of Jake Crawford, who's been in the throes of a long, extended slump. He did have 2 hits last night, which was good to see. And got to get consistency in other parts of the lineup. Got to get Jabari Richards swinging the bat consistently again. And when the guys start performing like they're capable of in the lineup, then you're going to see the runs start to come. You pair that with the kind of pitching, and I think this team can put together a stretch similar to what we saw last year in the second half of the season when they won 20 out of 26, I think it was, heading into the conference tournament, or maybe that included part of the conference tournament. Bottom line is that's what they're capable of. Question is, will they do it? That's what we don't know right now. Track record says there's a good chance they will. But you don't live on your track record. You live on what have you done for me lately. That is true, more true in baseball, I think, than it is any other sport. Forgive me. Pardon me. So, having said all that, despite the fact they've lost 5 in a row, I remain very optimistic about this team because I can see pieces of the puzzle coming together, particularly on the pitching end of things, and it's just a matter of getting that offense rolling the way it's capable of rolling. I mean, who would have thought that coming into this series with Samford to begin conference play, 25 games in, this team would have hit as few home runs as it has hit on the season. And this is a team with a lot of power. Landon Kay hit 11 last year. He's not hit a single home run. Brandon Elmy hit 11 last year. He's got 3, I think. Jabari Richards has 2. You know, he's a double-digit home run guy. So you've got some guys who have provided some pop in the past. Track record says they're going to. They haven't done it yet. So I think that's a bigger concern than what you see from the pitching numbers, because the inclination is to look at the team ERA and look at some individual ERAs and say, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? But when you take everything in total and you look at the pieces that are there now and what's developed in the first 25 games, I think this bullpen is going to be fine. And I think the starting staff is going to be okay. I'm more concerned about what's going to happen on the offensive end. And we'll get to see that start to manifest itself tomorrow night at 6 o'clock here at Latham Stadium. All right, we need to step out for a break before we go. Just a quick word about our friends at Hall's Chop House. Not only do they have great steaks, great prime rib, just everything. Allen Brothers Prime Steaks lead off the menu 7 nights a week, brunch on Sundays. But now they're open for lunch on Friday and Saturday. So you can take the Hall's experience and you can have it in the middle of the day on Friday to kickstart your weekend early. Billy and the folks there do such a phenomenal job. We're so thankful that they are part of what we are doing here and hope that they'll be with us for a long, long time. A lot of that depends on you. When you go see them, tell them that you heard about them here on the show. That's Hall's Chop House, the Greenville Steakhouse, Main Street in downtown Greenville. All right, to break we go. Dave Glenn will be with us when we come back. Dan Scott Show returns right after this. When the Furman baseball team goes on the road, it travels safely, comfortably, and with the latest technology with Jeans Tours and Charters. Jeans has been a Furman favorite for decades and has serviced Furman baseball for over 20 years. Take it from head coach Brett Harker. Book your next road trip with Jeans. Jeans Tours and Charters, online at jeansbussvc.com or call 864-242-1673. Jeans Tours and Charters, servicing the upstate since 1980.
If you've been sidelined by an injury, the St. Francis Sports Medicine team is here 24/7 to get you back on the field. Our highly trained network of physicians, athletic trainers, and physical therapists treat all types of sports-related injuries, even those that don't occur from playing a sport. Call the St. Francis Hurt Line at 675-HU-RT for priority appointments or at-home advice. Again, that's 675-HU-RT.
Hey Furman fans, it's baseball season. Here at Ingalls, we know that as you root for the home team, sometimes you want more than just peanuts and Cracker Jack. And while we do deliver on your favorite ballpark classics, we're proud to offer a packed lineup of everything you need to make your next meal a home run. Ingalls, a proud sponsor of Furman baseball and the official grocery store of Furman Athletics. Go Dins!
Life's healthier when you're backed by a Greenville Health System primary care doctor. Because then, the doctor that has your back is backed by the more than 1,000 physicians and specialists at the region's leading health system, all working together to bring you the right care in the right place at the right time. Great health starts with a GHS primary care doctor, and there are more than 200 of them conveniently located throughout the upstate, ready to see you. Find yours today at ghs.org/mydoctor.
Welcome back to the show as we continue here on this Wednesday edition. I'm Dan Scott. Good to have you with us. I want to tell you very quickly about the Walk a Mile project, which is a 501c3 nonprofit humanitarian aid organization whose goal is to organize, build, encourage, and invest in ways to meet the physical needs of impoverished communities around the world. What do, you ask? Well, they encourage and equip groups on how to go, how to prepare for a mission trip, how to form that trip, how to raise funds, and once you get there, how to do, like how to build houses, feed a village, conduct medical clinics, etc. You can see the website on the screen, thewhamproject.org. Give them a ring, check them out on the website, tell them you heard about them here on the show, find out how you can partner with the Walk a Mile Project, and tell them you heard about them right here. All right, let us go to the celebrity guest line. Already my favorite segment of the show, and it has been for many, many years, even more so today because I get to ask very short, terse questions and let Dave Glenn do all the talking today. He is, of course, the head honcho at ACCSports.com, the host of the David Glenn Show, syndicated live throughout the state of North Carolina, and our regular guest here on Wednesdays from August to April. David, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Dan. Good to be with you again.
Good to have you back. Hope everything is going well in Glendom. And, boy, I guess we start with some basketball, and we start with some coaching news in basketball. One assistant coach apparently leaving, and Louisville also appears to have found its man. Let's start with Louisville. They have hired Chris Mack. They enticed him to come from Xavier to take the job despite all of the issues that the Cardinals are facing right now. What do you think about that?
Well, I certainly think it's one of the more impressive names that was on the coaching carousel this year. And it's not surprising to me, Dan, that probably the two best jobs that came open also ended up with the two coaches who were the most accomplished, biggest names. And what I mean is UConn of the AAC has won, 4 NCAA titles in the last 20 years. Dan Hurley does great things at Rhode Island. Pitt offered Hurley the job, but where did he go? UConn, a proven national championship program. Similarly, Louisville is on that short list of schools that have won 3 or more NCAA titles. It is actually the biggest, or at worst, one of the biggest college basketball money machines in the history of the sport, given the fan interest in the venue and how they pack that arena. So I knew that Chris Mack would be intrigued. I'm sure he asked questions about the FBI investigation, but you and I both know enough coaches to appreciate this. When you're doubling your salary, you usually listen. With the escort scandal stuff, they already know their NCAA sanctions at Louisville. So even though that's not fun, you know what the penalties are and when they end, et cetera. And a lot of people believe, Dan, that the FBI investigation is not likely to end up just sharing all that information entirely with the NCAA. So does it lead to investigations? Does it lead to more sanctions? Is Louisville plus other schools, are they in more trouble based on this FBI case that's going to go into next year? We don't know those answers. Dino Gaudio, former Wake Forest coach, now with ESPN, told me yesterday, and he's a good friend of Chris Mack. DG, to understand why Chris Mack would leave his own alma mater, Xavier, to take the Louisville job, you have to remember this: the 15th and the 30th of every month. And what he meant by that is, if you're making $4 million a year with a 7-year deal at Louisville, even if things go wrong, even if more sanctions come, you have lifelong security financially for your family. And it's not easy to leave your alma mater, but Chris Mack did, both because of the money and because Louisville is a better route to chasing national championships than the Xavier job has ever proven to be.
And yet it's Mack who has kind of taken a Xavier program that has been a national name as a mid-major for a long, long time and kind of elevated them to an even higher standard. So I think that had to be an incredibly difficult decision for him to make. Do you think that it came down to simply the dollar sign?
I think it's the dollars plus the route to championships. I'll put it this way. You and I, now the Xavier job is better right now than it was, over the last 40 years. But here's a crazy statement that is true. Xavier has not had to fire a single basketball coach in the last 40 years. Mm-hmm. The reason for that is they're great at picking the right coaches. They're great at supporting those coaches. However, every single one of them has left Xavier for the quote-unquote better job in a bigger conference. Now, Xavier's in the Big East nowadays. That makes it even more compelling as a basketball program. But when Pete Gillen was at Xavier for 9 years and Providence of the old Big East came calling, he left. When Skip Prosser was at Xavier for 7 years and Wake Forest of the ACC came calling, he left. When Thad Matta was at Xavier for just a few years and Ohio State of the Big Ten came calling, he left. And more recently, Sean Miller in 2009, he had 5 years in at Xavier. None of these guys disliked the Xavier job. They all said great things about the school and the resources and everything else, giving you a chance to win at a high level. But when Arizona came calling, Sean Miller left Xavier as well. Similarly here, it's an extra layer for Chris Mack. I mean, the more you know about the guy, the more you wonder about those human sentiments that you're asking about, because Chris Mack was raised in the Cincinnati area where Xavier is located. He was born in Cleveland, not too far down the road, and he wore the Musketeers jersey as a player. I mean, it is extra hard to leave your alma mater, but when you're doubling your compensation, in his case, more personal ties, his wife and her family are guests from where? Louisville, Kentucky. So you're keeping the wife happy. You're doubling your income.
Now we get to the truth of the matter.
You're 48 years old, and you have a 7-year deal that can be worth $28 million. Even if things go wrong, Chris Mack has financial security for him and his family for the rest of his life.
Because we all know what? If mama ain't happy,
ain't nobody happy.
Ain't nobody happy. Dave Glenn of ACCSports.com joining us here on the program today. Interesting, you mentioned Skip Prosser, who obviously was a great basketball coach. Everybody loved him as a person, and he was taken from us far too soon. His son Mark has just been named the head coach of Western Carolina here in the Southern Conference, in Furman's conference. So we'll get to see the Prosser name quite a bit here in this conference. The other move is Jeff Capel leaving Duke, reportedly, and going to take the head coaching job at Pitt. Your thoughts there?
Well, it's another good hire for Pitt. I mean, they were in scramble mode after Dan Hurley turned them down, and a lot of others were not interested. And there was an angry conversation in the Pitt fan base. Some of them were telling the athletic director, Heather Lyke, who's only been there for 1 year, that it was Sean Miller or bust. And even though the Arizona coach has those weird headlines following him around, he is a former Pitt player. And Pitt wants to see itself as the program that Jamie Dixon led to 11 NCAA tournaments in 13 years not too long ago, rather than the dumpster fire that they were the last 2 years under Kevin Stallings. So you had an unrealistic fan base that chased Jamie Dixon out of town to a degree, and you had an unrealistic fan base in the Sean Miller context, and then completely unwilling to accept many of the other names that were run up the flagpole at Pitt, some of which had absolutely no interest in the job because of how difficult that job is right now. Well, Jeff Capel offers credibility. Jeff Capel offers recruiting, right? He was Coach K's #1 assistant and often voted the top recruiting assistant coach in America. Jeff Capel offers head coaching experience. He was very successful at VCU, and then he catapulted that into the job at Oklahoma of the Big 12. He led the Sooners to an Elite 8 before a scandal took them down. And Jeff Capel was not personally found to be involved in any wrongdoing at all, but he did lose that job. I think it came down to, Dan, this is speculation on my part, but Jeff Capel is one of the leading candidates to follow Mike Krzyzewski at Duke. And I think if Mike Krzyzewski had a heart-to-heart conversation with Jeff Capel and said, man, I might only have 1 or 2 more seasons in these old bones at the age of 71. If Jeff Capel thinks he's the next guy at Duke and Coach K says he might have only 1 or 2 years left in him, Jeff Capel's not taking the Pitt job.
Yeah.
However, if Coach K says, hey, man, now that I don't have the double duty of USA basketball and Duke weighing me down, remember he passed that baton to Greg Popovich, now that I'm through my 6 surgeries and they've rebuilt me like the $6 million man, I'm optimistic that I can coach for 4 or 5 more years. Well, then Jeff Capel, 2-time head coach, does he really want 4 or 5 more years in the right-hand man role that he's already served 6 or 7 years in? Then it becomes, I want to make more money. I want to polish my head coaching resume that has a little stain because of how Oklahoma ended. And if I do well at Pitt, I'm bolstering my chances to follow Mike Krzyzewski at Duke, however many years down the road. At the same time, he knows that if he does poorly at Pitt, he's going to take himself out of consideration to be Mike Krzyzewski's successor. But he's going to be compensated well enough, Dan, a 7-year deal with lots of guaranteed money, that even if things go wrong, he has protected himself and his family for the long run.
Visiting with Dave Glenn of the ACCSports.com site and the David Glenn Show in the state of North Carolina. Speaking of Duke, our buddy Cobb Oxford wanted me to ask you the question. He says, get Dave to ponder this. Given how Coach K has done the 180 on the one-and-done thing, Cobb wants to know if Grayson Allen might be the last 4-year player that Krzyzewski coaches.
Well, we know that will not be the case, but I'll tell you what's going on. I don't think the one-and-done, I'll put it this way, 2 of the last 6 NCAA champions were captured with the one-and-done concept as a part of it. A lot of the critics forget that. 2012 Kentucky, their 2 best players were Anthony Davis and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, who were both one-and-done players. 3 of their top 5 were one-and-done players. And 2015 Duke, 3 of their top 4, Jahlil Okafor, Tyus Jones, and Justice Winslow, were one-and-done players. So when 2 of the last 6 national champions were done, at least in part that way, it's not fair to say it just doesn't work. Now, is it complicated? Yes. Does it help to have veterans around your one-and-done guys? Yes. Quinn Cook is a senior for Duke in 2015. That John Calipari team at Kentucky that was led by 3 freshmen also had a senior in Darius Miller and a couple of sophomores in Terrence Jones and Deron Lamb, who also went on to be drafted by the NBA that same year. So the perfect scenario is not never recruit more one-and-dones. It's really continue to recruit some of them, but surround them with guys who will be around for 3 or 4 years. And Coach K actually has tried to do that. The problem is that a lot of the guys that are sitting behind the prep All-Americans get impatient and transfer out rather than hanging around for their sophomore, junior, senior year. So it's, believe it or not, Dan, and some people will watch the McDonald's All-American game tonight, there are 4 Duke signees in that game tonight. We are going to transition from a year where Mike Krzyzewski started 4 true freshmen and Grayson Allen as the senior to a season where Mike Krzyzewski starts 4 true freshmen again. And seriously now. And there are upperclassmen on the roster. They're just not as good as the 4 guys that Duke has signed that'll be playing in the McDonald's game. And how about this? Next year, there's not even going to be the equivalent of Quinn Cook as the senior guard on the national title team in 2015 or Grayson Allen as the senior guard on an Elite 8 team this year. There is no high playing time senior on next year's roster. They have a couple of junior big guys who have been role players to this point who are theoretically the leaders of next year's team. There's going to be no shortage of talent, but for those wondering, will Coach K pivot? I don't know if he can pivot as quickly, even if he wanted to pivot, because the way things are going, 4 freshmen are going to lead the way next year as well.
By the way, Dave, what do you make of all of the I guess the maybe the best term to use would be sarcastic glee at the idea of Duke slapping the floor playing a zone defense. That has gotten more play on Twitter and everything else than you'd think something like that would.
Well, that was funny. I mean, right? That is not exactly – zone defense is not as sexy, and some would say not as infinitely masculine as an overplaying man-to-man defense is, right? So when Mike Krzyzewski built Duke for basically 3 decades, almost entirely around man-to-man at the defensive end of the floor, well, people didn't like the slap the floor, but at least it fit the Duke image, right? Mm-hmm. The uppity, in-your-face, we don't care if you don't like it, lots of people hate you image. It fit not only that stuff, it fit, aggressive overplaying man-to-man is very in-your-face by nature, and so is slapping the floor to try to get a huge defensive stop. So it just sort of fit the theme. When you go into a Syracuse-style zone and you adopt it for 90% of your defensive possessions, as the Devils did for the last month and a half, it just doesn't seem to fit the slap the floor mentality, and yet they did it. And of course, they took a lot of abuse for it. But it had most people either rolling their eyes or just laughing out loud, as social media often does.
Yeah, the Ducators got a big kick out of it. Hey, Marv Albert once said that in the whether it's a big game or really any game, as far as post-game interviews, he preferred to be in the loser's locker room because the stories were better, the answers were usually more accurate. There was more truth in them because emotions were raw. And when you go to a loser's locker room, sometimes we get a situation like we saw with Leonard Hamilton and Dana Jacobs. What would you make of all that? I thought she asked the right question. I didn't think he handled it very well under the circumstances, but I was glad to see him come back and at least kind of halfway apologize for it.
Yeah, I agree with what you just said there in your summary. Dana Jacobson not only asked the right question, whether fans like it or not, whether coaches like it or not. When you accept billions of dollars for the television of the NCAA tournament, you are agreeing to certain things. And that might mean a halftime interview that a coach doesn't like. It might mean a post-game interview that a coach doesn't like. I agree that it is a difficult time. As an intensely competitive person myself, I understand why we're not always our best selves in that moment. But there is absolutely no way that Dana Jacobson should be criticized in any way. She not only asked the right question, she asked the absolutely necessary question. This was one of the biggest games in the history of Florida State basketball, and they're down 4 with 11 seconds to go, and they choose not to foul. At the end of a season, Dan, where you can look up probably a half a dozen times where Leonard Hamilton in the regular season did foul in similar circumstances. Now, I am aware that a 90% free throw shooter had the ball for the Michigan Wolverines. I am aware of the extreme long shot of if he makes 2 free throws, you're down 6 with 11 seconds to go. I understand the low percentages there. But you still ask the question. He should have answered the question appropriately. I've known Leonard a long time. His body of work for how he treats people and how he treats the media, in my eyes, gives him the benefit of the doubt. And to his credit, as you said, he apologized afterward. He did not handle himself well in the moment. But just as I give Dana Jacobson credit for her poise for her follow-up questions and not really backing down, nor should she have, I give credit. Leonard Hamilton had an impulse to just walk off of live television. He was ready to walk off of that platform. So he wasn't his best self, but he also didn't turn it into a volcanic eruption either. And he didn't walk off the set entirely. He fumbled his way through. He came around to an answer, and he apologized later. So I understand why it's a sensitive topic, but, these TV partners want things in return for their billions.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things they want, and whether people like it or not, it's just part of the fabric of how the NCAA is done nowadays.
It was interesting. I said halfway apologize afterwards, and my buddy Scott Keeler just pointed out on our Facebook Live feed, he said his quote-unquote apology never had the words sorry or apologize in it. So he kind of went around the barn to get in the front door there, but I guess he got it done. Dave, real quick before we let you go, did you get how many of the Final Four did you get?
I got one,
Villanova.
But it's the most important one. I had Villanova winning the national championship.
Of course you did. You're a Philly guy. Come on. You're a Philly guy. Who else are you going to pick?
Well, it's funny, Dan. I don't know if you know the culture up there. I know you're a huge college basketball guy, but long story short is my own father, who loves college basketball, is a graduate of both St. Joseph's University and Temple. Both of them, to say they dislike Villanova intensely would be an understatement. So there's no homerism when I pick Villanova as a member of the Glenn family. I just think they're the best team, and they have the best combination of coaching, talent, experience, and toughness. And I think those are the things most likely to lead to cutting down the nets.
Yeah. The other thing that we get, obviously, is we get to see, at least for one more game, this incredible story of Loyola Chicago. It's really a shame the way the bracket has kind of stacked up. I would have liked to have seen Loyola playing one of the other two in the championship game, because I really like John Beilein in Michigan, and I don't want to have to root against him in this, but I really don't have much of a choice.
Yeah, it's funny how the bracket falls. I mean, the two better teams are going to face each other as the 1 seeds, Kansas and Villanova. But it does give Cinderella an even better chance, I think. It gives Loyola all the double-digit seeds ever to make the Final Four lost in the semifinals. I think you could make an argument that because Michigan is not as unbeatable as Kansas or Villanova, Loyola has a decent shot to be the first double-digit seed in the title game.
Wouldn't that be something? Dave, tell everybody how they can get more of what you're doing on a daily basis.
On Twitter, it's at ACC Sports and at David Glenn Show. Online, you can check out davidglennshow.com, which has a list of our affiliates and places that stream our show noon to 3 weekdays. And then, of course, all day, every day, audio, analytics, coach interviews, player interviews, recruiting information, basketball and football, spring football, coaching carousel. If you like those kinds of things with an ACC's expert flavor, you'll like ACCsports.com.
All right, my friend, we will talk to you again next week. Have a good week.
Thanks, Dan. Right back at you, man. Take care.
All right, that is Dave Glenn of ACCsports.com. We've got a break to get in. We'll come back and do a quick wrap on things with some good news for a Furman golfer, among other things. This is the Dan Scott Show. We'll return right after this.
Holding, number 79, defense, first down. I'm also holding a party tonight.
Great call by the official. Looks like we've got another flag on the field.
Holding, a Pepsi. Necessary refreshment.
Hey, Ted, bring some of that Pepsi to my party.
Pepsi and the NFL. Welcome to the Fun Doesn't End Zone.
The Atlanta Bread Company wants to make your dining experience as convenient as possible, especially if you're ordering takeout. Go online to atlantabreadcompany.com, place your order there, and pay for it too. Then, when you get to the restaurant at Cherrydale Point, you breeze right by the cash registers and go straight to the pickup counter where your food will be waiting. And speaking of food, try the new Shrimp Po' Boy, a delicious and surprisingly healthy addition to the already great menu. That's the Atlanta Bread Company, Cherrydale Point in Greenville.
Zaxby's food has always brought people together. Catering to the big moments, the little wins, the long talks, and the quick getaways. Because food this inviting is bound to add a lot of flavor to your life.
Introducing the Zax Pack. Served with chicken fingers, sides, Texas toast, and iced tea. Pick one up for dinner or your next event. Friends, family, flavor. Zaxby's. Indescribably good.
I was surprised recently when I learned that Americans spend $80 billion a year on illegal sports gambling. Sure, that's spread out over millions of gamblers, but still it makes you wonder where that money's coming from. Unfortunately, too often it's coming from money that was intended to buy groceries, pay the mortgage, or even put children through college. If gambling's had a negative impact on your life, call the SC Gambling Hotline toll-free at 877-452-5155. Help is confidential and available 24 hours a day. A message from the South Carolina Department of Alcohol and Other Drug Abuse Services.
All right, welcome back to the program. Our thanks to Dave Glenn for spending some time with us, as he always does here on the show. Just a quick reminder about our friends at Ridge Media. Kenny and his folks there are in the beginning stages of putting together the new DanScottShow.com website. I'm very, very excited about that and looking forward to the things that's going to bring to not only the show, but to our advertisers and to you, the listener and the web surfer and everything else. We're really going to try to do a great job with it. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it, right? And I'm using Ridge Media because they are very, very good at what they do. They're a one-stop shop based here in Greenville that does logo, print, and website design, as well as search engine optimization and marketing. And their clients range from startups like mine all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. They're locally owned, a marketing firm, as I said, based in Greenville. Also have a office in Charleston. So call today to get a free consultation, and they'll tell you what they can do for you. Won't charge you a thing. 864-354-6175. 354-6175 for Ridge Media. All right. Before we go, let me get, right here. Congratulations to Furman sophomore golfer Keller Harper, who's been named the Southern Conference Men's Golfer of the Week for the second time. That was for competition from March 21st to 27th. He tied for 9th place in the 123-man field at the Furman Intercollegiate over the weekend after opening with a 3-over par 75 on Friday, responded with a 369 Saturday to move up 27 spots into a tie for 21st, and then made another huge jump Sunday, completing the tournament with a 2-under 70 to leap another 12 spots into 9th. He had a 3-day total of 2-under 214, finishing ahead of 2 of the 3 top 100 ranked Division I players in the field, and was one of just 13 players in the entire tournament to finish under par. He helped the host Paladins to 4th place in the team standings on their home course. So congratulations to Keller Harper, and second time this year he's been the SoCon Men's Golfer of the Week. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for us. Give my voice about a 4-minute break and early break. We will be back with you tomorrow. Preview of Furman and Samford. Billy Davis will be with us. Maybe Brett Harker, depending on his schedule. I look forward to having you along for the ride as we get you set for a weekend of Southern Conference baseball, Furman and Samford, beginning tomorrow night at Latham Stadium. Until then, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for indulging me with the voice. I'm Dan Scott saying God bless you, and so long, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow.